Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals. We're gonna do another top five list. So guys, it's not necessarily top five, it's just my personal five picks of boa pet species. So there's plenty of boas out there. I'm gonna be talking about ones that probably make the best pets. So not necessarily display animals like the emeralds and the Amazons that aren't necessarily for a lot of just pet keepers, or we're not gonna talk about anacondas or something like that, which, you know, even if males do keep to a fairly manageable size, you still need a big enclosure, you still need a large water dish, you still need frequent water changes, almost a pond, almost like a zoo, like naturalistic setup for some of them if you're not going to sit there and change out water every day. So we're just going to be talking about five kind of the best reptile, like boa reptile pets. I just keep messing this up, I'm sorry. Best boa pets. And so things like handleability, availability, price, things like that. That's what I sat there and thought about when going with this. And so number five on this list is one that actually most people don't even think about and are starting to kind of pop up a little bit more, and that's a rubber boa. So we all know about Rosie boas, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, but the rubber boa is one of the only, North American boa species. They are a constrictor, and they look kind of funky. They're called rubber because they kind of look like this bland, drab, like just rubber thing. But they're actually a really neat and interesting species, and they're actually pretty good for an intro one if you're not into something super flashy. So, they're native to North America, and they're found kind of essentially on the western half of the United States. So from British Columbia all the way down, almost to like kind of in the almost to the southwest, like in just like from so British Columbia, that's the western part of Canada, all the way down the United States. And they are found in a wide variety of habitats, from like the seacoast all the way up into like the temperate mountain rainforests of British Columbia, Oregon, Washington. They're found at sea level, 8,000 feet, dry deserts, very, very wide-ranging habitat, which means they're fairly adaptable, which for what that means to translate it to captivity, they're pretty easy to keep. They need a fairly warm hotspot, like in, the high 80s. They don't get very large. Like a big female Rosie boa is only going to get like 28 to 36 inches. That's a big one. So they're boas, they give live birth. They're not fast moving at all. So even like a sand boa who spends most of the time hidden, you're not going to see Rosie boas very often. They're very fossorial, which means they like to burrow underground. So if you're going to keep them, you need a big, deep, thick substrate. They don't need a whole lot of humidity. They still need a water dish, still need a temperature gradient, but they're a pretty easy, just kind of forgotten boa species that I think would make a decent reptile pet. And while most that you find out there for a while were wild caught, there are more people starting to breed them in captivity, so you can pick up a captive bred rubber boa, which I think would be really cool to get. Some states you can't necessarily have them, but that's because those states usually have something to do with like native species you can't own, like Georgia can't own corn snakes and things like that. So that was rubber boas. Now we're going to talk about the next one, because I already basically mentioned it, Rosie boas. Rosie boas. So this is Rosie. She hasn't been on too much, mostly just in the species spotlight. So Rosie boas are actually a really cool boa species. They don't get very large. They'll get a little bit bigger than her. She's just kind of a chunker, and she's actually on a bit of a diet, to be completely honest with you. But Rosie boas are a very underrated boa species, at least in my opinion. So they are native to America, to North America. They're in the southwestern United States, so Southern California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Texas. So southwestern, desert-ish type snake, kind of arid, but they aren't necessarily sitting there on a rock all day long, so they still need some humidity, like at least a place to kind of hide away. They need a little bit warmer of a hotspot. But these guys have a wide variety of morphs. So Rosie has a locality basically near the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Nice chunky little girl. She even ate a couple days ago, and she's still kind of chunky, so she doesn't eat very often, guys. So just saying, I'm not force feeding my snake. She's just kind of chunky. But they have a bunch of different phases. So there's like where it's kind of black and gray, where it's almost like a turquoise and orange. There's a naturally occurring albino. There's a couple different morphs out there, but I'm not super familiar with them. They stay a nice, easy to size. Like usually that most of them around 2.5 feet long, so they can keep them in kind of smaller compartments. The only reason why I don't put these guys a little bit higher up, which I did not know at the time, which she does do occasionally, which evidently a lot of Rosies do, which is they just kind of decide to just kind of munch on you sometimes. They'll just be cruising along, and then they'll just kind of cock their heads to the side and just kind of go, oh, is this tasty? Oh, maybe not. Okay, I'll figure it out. Almost like a shark, where a shark will come up and like bite something and decide whether or not it's food. But I mean, it doesn't hurt. It's not bad, but it's just something that I would say wouldn't make this the number one. Like if you're getting a kid a snake and you like the Rosie Boa because it's a smaller and it's a boa, maybe not go with the Rosie Boa because they will sometimes do that. Maybe for, maybe not like the top 5 beginner snakes, which I totally did. So edit that. But still a really good pet boa. Third species I'm going to talk about, the Kenyan Sand Boa. So there's a number of different sand boa species out there. Rough scales, Russians, a couple other ones, but mostly I'm talking about the Kenyan sand boas because the other ones, they're a little bit harder to come by. And these are obviously the most popular for a number of reasons. Number one, they were widely imported and they also breed very easily and have huge litters. So these are a boa, they do give live birth, and the females are quite a bit larger than the male. This is Dean. He's a rescue that came in, and we do have a female, but she's still in quarantine. And for any of you Harry Potter nerds out there, regardless of how we feel about J.K. Rowling at the moment, her name is Angelina, so if you get that reference. But Dean here is just a male, pretty close to adult size Kenyan Sand Boa. They don't get very large, obviously, so you can keep them in smaller things, like a 10 to 20 gallon tank is all you need, or like an equivalent size tub. They don't climb at all. If you put like a log or rock, maybe they'll get up on that, but if you give them like a big tall branch, they're not really going to climb. They won't use it. Maybe there's one out there that's going to make me a liar, but they really don't take advantage of it. They don't need a whole lot of humidity. They still need access to fresh water, just like every animal probably should have fresh access to water. Access to fresh water. Doing that all day, guys. I'm sorry. But a whole bunch of different morphs, albinos, paradoxes, striping. They're really, really cool. Aneries. And I just have a couple normals because people just kind of keep giving me normals. But I still really like them. They are a really cool boa species. I think they are very underrated. They do have morphs. But that being said, you're not going to see them very much. Kind of like with the rubber boas, these guys spend all of their time buried under the substrate. That being said, if you're a bit of a snake nerd like me, it is really fun to sit there with the tongs and have them like graboid out and grab whatever it is that you're feeding to them. Although obviously it's never going to be more than like a small mouse for like a big girl. But they are really cool boas, and I really like sand boas. They're not necessarily like my top 5 favorites, but I still think they're really good pets. I do love them. I would never not want to. I would never want to not have one, and I think they're really cool. Like an albino paradox stripe sand boa, super cool. Next up, pretty obvious, pretty easy to think of choice, the Boa Constrictor. So the Boa Imperator and the Boa Constrictor, 2 different species, but they both kind of sit there at the same thing, so I'm just going to lump them together. They both make really good pet snakes. Not necessarily like a first-time one, because they get big, and that's the only reason why. This is Andromeda. I don't know if she's been on camera or not, but she is a super ghost boa, het fork hall albino. She is a paradox, which means that the phenotype is not expressing the way it normally does, and so they just call that paradox. So there's a lot of weird, crazy, busy pattern going on with her. But these guys, they are really good pets. I love boa constrictors. They were the first love of snakes that I personally had. One of the first snakes, obviously, it wasn't my first snake. It was a ball python, then a corn snake, and then lots of boas. But they are really great. They're great eaters. They are a little dumb, so they just kind of sit there, kind of like ball pythons. They do like to climb. They are semi-arboreal, even the big ones. Like you've seen Severus, the big Guyana that I have, just shoot straight up, which you wouldn't believe because she used to be a really fatty when we got her in as a rescue. Hey, Andy. great eaters, very handleable, very personable, sit here and hang at you like this. And, you know, they're just a really good pet boa constrictor to have. They come in a wide variety of morphs, localities. You've seen me talk about them in all sorts of different videos about all the different morphs, all the different types of just albino, all the different localities and subspecies of the boa constrictors. So they're just a really cool pet. And if you're interested in breeding, there's all the morphs, there's the locales, like I said before. They're just a really cool hangout snake, kind of like ball pythons, where they're not constantly really fast moving. They're just kind of chill on you. That's kind of with boas in general, to be honest with you. But so that's boa constrictor, boa imperators. I mean, I've talked about them to death. They do make good pets. Would I recommend that as like a first pet for like a kid? Probably not. But, you know, someone who's dedicated, does their research, understands that the snake will get 6.5 to 9 feet long. If it does need to be fed constantly like a corn snake or even a ball python, which is really cool, but it's a really good pet snake. And the last on the list, I guess you could say the top one, although I think it's kind of tied with the boas and with the imperators and the constrictors, and that is the Dumerals boa. This is Lily. She's my big girl Dumerals, although they can get a little bit longer than her. The only reason why I say these guys might outrank the other ones, although the price of them is starting to go up, but if you think about like all the different morphs and stuff on the boa imperators and things like that, it kind of levels out, is that I've never had a Dumerals or interacted with one that wasn't just super chill. Like, it's not like the boas are very fast moving to begin with, but they don't move very fast. They will climb, but not nearly as much because they're ground boas. They're just very mellow, very easy to handle, very easy to just kind of hang out with. Still have an amazing prey response. Never had an issue with that. Not over the Adam's apple, please, Lil. They don't get as long as the boa constrictors can. Like, you won't see one really over 7.5, maybe 8 feet long. I don't think I've ever heard of a Dumerals that achieved 9 to 10 feet. But they're a little bit more heavy-bodied. Because they're a ground boa, they don't need to be as lean and mean to be climbing trees nearly as much. They mostly are ambush predators. Most snakes are ambush predators. At least the boids are. They're definitely with this really cool pattern. Lily, come here. Come here, Lily. This really cool pattern that they have is meant to blend in the leaf litter. So that way when an animal coming across, I guess it's Madagascar, so probably like a small deer or like a lemur comes across, you know, they can snatch that. They are super chill. That being said, they do have really big teeth, but I've never had an issue with a Dumerals before, and I've had more than just Lily and James. You saw our little male in the species spotlight about these guys. But I really like Dumerals boas. I don't know if that's come across or not yet, but I think they're really great pets. So like I said, this is just my personal opinion. In no way are professional. I just really like snakes. I've had them for a long time. I've worked with a bunch of different species because I'm absolutely a generalist and I like a whole bunch of different type of species because they all are really cool for their own individual things. And that goes with boas too. The rubbers, the Rosies, the Kenyan Sand Boas, the imperators, constrictors, and the Dumerals ground boa. Like I said, there's plenty of other boa species out there that I think make really good pets. You know, an anaconda does make a decent pet for a select group of people. The emerald tree boas and the Amazon tree boas for people who really want to sit there and do their research and make sure that their habitats and conditions are just spot on, because those arboreal snakes need really good conditions. I think they are amazing pets. I don't have an ETB or ATB, but, you know, I have quite a few different individual species, but these are just my pick of 5, technically 6, species of boa snakes that make really good pets. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you think there was one that should have been on this list or should have been left out, let me know down in the comments. Hit me up, Facebook, Instagram. Please hit that bell notification. Subscribe if you can. Lets YouTube know we're here, and we'll check you next time.